What makes the United States Marine Corps so special? Now, there's basically two schools of thought when it comes to the United States Marine Corps. There's people who think that they're Army Junior and therefore superfluous. And then there's the pre Gulf War Iraqi Army who thought that the Marine Corps was so elite that they were required to kill a family member before they were allowed to graduate from boot camp. In fact, Saddam Hussein was so afraid of the Marines and a potential amphibious assault that just a couple of amphibious ships and supporting battleships was enough to make Saddam Hussein keep some of his troops in Kuwait to repel an amphibious invasion rather than spread them out over the border to attack the actual army invasion. Now, of course, the whole Marines have to kill a family member in order to graduate isn't true, but the Marines weren't about to tell Saddam Hussein that. But the truth is that the Marine Corps really is different. And some of that comes from their mission, and some of that comes from their very rich and storied culture. But we'll get to that. Let's talk about the actual founding of the Marine Corps. Now, the Marine Corps is actually older than the United States. It was founded on November 10th, 1775, at the Tun Tavern in Philadelphia. This was done to create a force that could complement the Navy when boarding ships, repelling boarders, and performing amphibious raids. The Marine Corps was actually disbanded for a time after the Revolutionary War, but it was brought back with the Navy to fight French privateers in 1798. The Marine Corps was then used along with the Navy to hunt pirates in the Mediterranean Sea. For the next 100 or so years, while the U.S. Army was engaging in colonial expansion into Indian territories in the middle of the United States, the United States Marine Corps was used again and again and again in these small interventions in the Pacific and South America. And this is where you start to see the legend and unique abilities of the Marine Corps grow. Now, don't get me wrong, the U.S. Army was part of these interventions as well, especially during the Mexican War and the Spanish-American War. But these small engagements around the Pacific and South America became the hallmark of the Marine Corps. And they performed these interventions with little support but the ships they took with them. Here's an example, and it goes back to the Korean War. Oh, not that Korean War. This Korean War of 1871. Although the site of the battle was relatively close to the Incheon landing 79 years later. You see, back then, Korea was one of the most closed countries in the world, and in 1866, the American ship General Sherman shipwrecked off the coast of Korea, and her entire crew was massacred by Koreans. The United States was willing to chalk this up to a misunderstanding, so they sent 5 Navy ships to negotiate a shipwreck treaty with Korea, along with a regiment of Marines in case it wasn't a misunderstanding after all. The expeditionary force was fired upon by Korean forts on Ganghwa Island while U.S. Navy sailors in small boats were sounding the river for passage. The expeditionary force gave the Koreans a chance to apologize. The Navy waited 10 days, and when the apology didn't come, they performed an amphibious landing on the island with integrated Navy fire support. The Marine Corps and their integrated artillery, along with some Navy and ship-based fire support, managed to capture 3 Korean forts and cause about 250 Korean casualties at the cost of 3 Marine lives. The battle was so fierce that 6 Marines were awarded the Medal of Honor, most of them for hand-to-hand combat. This was the first time the Medal of Honor was awarded to an expeditionary force fighting against a foreign adversary, and the Marines were awarded 6 of them. Now, granted, the Medal of Honor was one of the few awards that could be awarded back then. The Silver Star, Bronze Star wouldn't come along till the next century, but 6 of them, 6 in one battle. Clint Eastwood never made a movie about this. There's no Call of Duty 1870s edition, yet this battle was a defining moment for the Marine Corps. How did the Marines dislodge a determined enemy from 3 fortified defensive positions while only taking 3 casualties? Audacity, superior training, superior marksmanship, coordination of fires with naval gunnery. That last one's actually a pretty big one. We're talking about coordination of fires before radios and drones. You got guys using runners, boats, and signal flags. This is the gold standard of what Marines are supposed to do. operate globally as an amphibious raiding and reaction force using only integrated support. And the fact that Marines normally fight with only integrated support or what they bring with them created this culture of uniqueness and innovation. For example, the Marines were the first branch to use close air support during World War I with initial attempts at dive bombing. And the Marines kept refining their close air support during other attempts in the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Nicaragua in the 1920s. The Marines basically pioneered the concept of close air support. In fact, the Marines are so unique and so focused on providing good close air support to the infantry that they actually send pilots out to the infantry to do rotational tours because the Marines believe a pilot on the ground is better able to call in pilots in the sky to describe what they're trying to hit. That's how dedicated they are. But the innovation didn't stop with close air support. It was a Marine that invented the Higgins boat. The Marines invented the triangular rifle squad with 3 fire teams instead of 2. The Marines invented vertical envelopment and the evacuation of casualties through helicopters flying off of ships. The Marines invented a hybrid helicopter and plane that could take off like a helicopter, fly like a plane, refuel in midair. That way they could better perform raids and evacuations. Today, the Marine Corps is the only branch with a cyber auxiliary. This is a group of civilians that volunteer their time to teach the Marines cybersecurity. I know this because I'm a proud member. In fact, the Marines are so focused on technology and innovation that they're actually considering plussing up their squads to 15 members to add an assistant squad leader and a drone operator. I want you to think about that. Look at the footage coming out of Ukraine using drones to attack vehicles. Imagine a drone asset, not at the company level, not at the platoon level, at the squad level. Imagine the capability that that can give a fighting force. The Marine Corps was also the first branch to understand that tanks are of limited utility during amphibious missions. All right, now I have to talk about this for a moment. The Marine Corps actually eliminated all of their tanks in 2021. In fact, the Marine Corps used the words operationally unsuitable to describe tanks. Seem a little prophetic? I don't know. You look at what's going on in Ukraine. Look at all those fields of killed Russian tanks that were killed by smart weapons. Think the Marine Corps is on to something here? And when you look at where America's next war might be fought, it kind of makes you wonder if a 70-ton tank would really be useful here, especially since the adversary has drones and smart weapons. Remember, the Marine Corps is not Army Junior. And the Marine Corps had the courage to admit that traditional armored warfare distracted them from their missions of raids, amphibious landings, and operating in the littorals. But that's not the only thing that makes the Marine Corps special. Anybody who has served in the Army or the Army National Guard has seen the Marines join the Army or the National Guard, and they never quite stop being Marines. Sometimes this manifests itself as prior service Marines constantly explaining to their new Army comrades how they used to do things in the Marine Corps, which, as a platoon sergeant, I loved hearing over and over again. But there is something else that makes Marines special. The U.S. Army tends to develop its pride around division, brigade, or battalion level. Anybody who's sang Dog-Faced Soldier after PT or has scribbled a Rakkasan's Tory on every single available surface understands that. But Marines just tend to be Marines. The pride doesn't necessarily stem from their unit, it stems from being a Marine. In fact, every year on November 10th, Marines around the world celebrate the Marine Corps birthday, even if they're now wearing an Army uniform. So that kind of brings us back to the original question: what makes the Marine Corps so special? And I think it's this: the Army is something you did, the Marines is something you are. Thank you for watching.